Welcome to Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight. I'm Pete Wright, and that right over there is Sean Coleman. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Pete. How's it going?
Going very well. I'm excited about our conversation today because it's a little bit more technical. You're going to educate me a little bit on BA Insight's investment and research into AI, NLP, AI and natural language processing.
That's right.
First of all, how did this come up as a topic for you? Just sitting there reading the newspaper, you think, you know what I want to talk about this morning? AI and natural language processing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, right? So, we've done a ton of research and a ton of investment, right? So if you kind of peel the layers back of, we've obviously talked on this podcast the way that we view the market, and kind of 1/3 of our viewpoint outside of our connectors and outside of our UI framework is around our auto classification and metadata and taxonomy and generation and text analytics. And you can't really, in today's world, talk about that without really dealing with what people think AI is, what people think, natural language processing is, which, isn't always AI, but there's, Microsoft and Google are both releasing capabilities here. Amazon has capabilities, Facebook. So I thought, it's interesting for me to talk about this and dig a little bit in the technical, but it's probably, and I get confused by it. So I'm thinking that people out there may be confused by it. Is AI all NLP? Is NLP all AI? Which one, can you have one without the other? And so that's why I thought that it would be a good little thing to dig into, because I think it's top of mind. Data, like we said, data continues to just massively increase. The way in which we communicate via social media channels and email changes, but in the end, we still talk to each other like humans. And the better ability to understand that, the better off I think everybody's going to be. And that's why I think it's an interesting topic.
Well, and again, from a customer perspective, as soon as customers experience savvy, front end to a natural language processing application, they get very spoiled very quickly. It's really convenient to be able to interact with your data using natural language. So I think it's a very timely topic. So let's start off. What is AI, NLP? What's the stuff that gets you confused?
Yeah, I think first of all, the way that we view the AI side of NLP. The NLP, or just trying to understand and process natural language, has been around for a very, very long time. Basically, as soon as someone started put pen to paper, someone needed to really understand what it was and be able to communicate that. So text analytics kind of grew up in this area, but it was all these very complicated algorithms, and you had to build models, and you had to, give me 100 of your documents, and I'm gonna understand those, and then we're gonna apply that to the other thing. The AI piece of it is that companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon have invested heavily in this area. And so now you actually have that type of brain trust available to developers and others as an API that can just be tapped into. So we've kind of, I'd say, lowered the barrier to entry onto NLP by applying this kind of API cloud-based AI capability to it. It's not necessarily that Microsoft and Google are doing things vastly different than what we historically did, but what they've done is on such a scale and with such an access to information and access to training models that you're able to kind of short circuit. You're able to jump, 75% of the way there by integrating with one of these models, and a lot of times probably fit a bunch of your use cases. Now, we'll talk in a little bit about where maybe it doesn't fit. You still have to kind of roll up your sleeves and do some of the traditional. But when we talk about AI NLP, I'm focused on, there are providers out there, your Microsoft and your Googles of the world, that are providing this as a service, and how do you best leverage that? And that's really what we're talking about.
So they're at least saving you the time of doing, as you say, that 75% of the legwork that you used to have to do yourself, the training you used to have to do yourself. And that is a fantastic head start. So how do you frame a discussion around what they do differently, these two we'll just say the two giants,
Yeah. And that's
or three giants.
right. And that's who we've focused our integration and did really kind of a shootout in comparison of Google and Microsoft, right? So we integrated with both. We fed the same content into both, and you realize that from a marketing perspective, you could look at, if you go on there and say, okay, well, what do they say they do? They're both dealing with things like sentiment analysis. So I'll be able to tell you, as someone speaking about this in a positive or a negative fashion. I'm able to extract concepts and entities, and I'm able to extract, key phrases. I'm able to tell you the language of the content of the document or the bit of content that you've got. So in a lot of ways, at a high level, they provide the same capabilities. But if you think about where the two companies came from, they grew up in different views of the world. Where Google grew up more consumer search engine. I need to find information out on the web, and my consumers are trying to find that. And if I'm going to rule the world of search, I've got to have the best search engine for what consumers are going to look at. And Microsoft grew up in the world of I'm a platform for organizations and companies to provide valuable services to their employees. I'm gonna own mail, and I'm gonna own document creation, and I'm gonna own collaboration. I'm gonna do all these things. So a kind of a consumer and a business view of the world. So depending on how those companies grow up, it was interesting to see the difference in the way that their kind of natural language capabilities work. Now they both have the things that we talked about. They both have a free tier. They both have deep documentation. They both have API integration examples. But when it comes down to it, there were kind of some interesting differences, right? So Microsoft, one of the key differences we saw is that Microsoft does things in kind of 5,000 chunks of characters at a time, and does really, really good at those 5,000 characters. So they'll tell you exactly what the key phrase is about, exactly what it is, where Google took an approach of the entire body. Now, maybe that's directly related to Google never shied away from indexing as much of the internet as they could get, and Microsoft worked on a kind of a per document basis, which is where they grew up. And I think that's one of the differences that you see in the way that they attack the problem.
I never considered that the way that they attack this particular problem is buried so deeply into the sort of DNA of the company.
Yeah, and that was what I think we were interested to find out. I mean, but in the end, the results, we got great results either way, and what it showed you was, man, it's going to take work for people to recognize what really the great results are, right? So here's the kind of the rub of natural language processing. Either one of them are going to be able to break it down. They're going to be able to give you a good score of, we think this is positive text, we think this is negative text. We can tell you with beyond certainty that this is English and that's Spanish. And we could tell you that these people are talking about Apple computer, and these people are talking about iPhones, and these people are talking about Surface laptops. We can tell you all of those things, right? But what needs to happen beyond that, and that's where they're both able to train their models on what the world does. When you go take it and you implement it, and what we did was we integrated it with our auto classifier. So it's point and click. It's very easy for anyone to say, turn on natural language processing for Microsoft. Here's my API key. Turn it on for Google. Here's my API key. But what they can't do is apply that to what makes sense in your organization. So each organization speaks about things in different ways. We refer to our internal capabilities in certain ways. We refer to our employees in certain ways. We refer about our customers in certain ways. And that what we found is that's very different customer to customer. And a model that's trained on basic things that are available in the world doesn't really pick up on that. So what we've seen is that there needs to be that next layer of intelligence where you take what's coming out of the general API engine and you say, okay, that's great. Here's what's important to my company, and here's the rules that are specific about my company. Now apply this next level of intelligence on that, and you at that point in time you really get great results. So our main learning was that, like I said, they're going to get you 75% of the way there, but it's not something that out of the box, beyond recognizing the things that if you need to know what language it is, awesome. If you need to know what specific companies it talks about, it's going to tell you that. But there's a next level of intelligence that now that you have that, if you apply the knowledge you have about your organization, you're able to kind of take that output to the next level. And I think we saw that with either one of them.
When you talk about the way these companies talk about themselves, my assumption is that you would have been talking about like a vernacular kind of a dictionary. Like pharmaceutical has a specific sort of language, for lack of a better word. They have specific vocabulary that supports their business that is not the same as, for example, legal dictionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But are you talking about even more than that, about the sentiment analysis about the way they talk about employees, or are we still just talking about kind of the broader language?
No, I think it's both. I mean, the broader language for sure. I mean, you think we had an example that a large insurance company that they don't have customers, they have members, right? So that's the vernacular side of it, right? But then there's just nuance in the way, and I think it's probably a leadership thing, when you deal with the corporate culture and things, that when that they're the way that they oh, that was great is great, or was it, oh, great, right? Because
right.
I said it that way, but great is positive most of the time.
Time.
Yeah, what we found out was that's not as individual as you would think. It's almost, you kind of see patterns show up in companies. So there are things where even in the positive and negative sentiment, the way in which they celebrate people, the way in which they have wins, and the way in which they have losses are described in a specific way that maybe doesn't meet the model of the general public. And we saw that in a number of different places. And I think it was very interesting to say, it was like, no, that was completely positive. And you're like, well, it didn't seem that way from the email, right? And they're like, no, it's great. We were congratulating them. Okay. So it's funny.
That's fascinating. Well, did you learn anything that actually would help maybe influence, organizations on their decisions on who they might want to leverage in terms of their natural language processing tool?
I think we did, and so hopefully people won't view this as a cop out. I actually think that you need to make sure that you can support both, and that you can switch whenever you need to. So here's what we found out. When we started, it was, okay, Google is way better at pulling out the key concepts of this document. And then we went for that and we said, okay, we're going to do an implementation where you take a document, you feed it, and we're going to give you the 7 most important sentences of that document. And it's going to be a summary that you can read. And it was fantastic. And then we said, look, we're not getting near that capability out of what we see Microsoft. I think it was only 2 or 3 months, we tested it again, and Microsoft had the capability, and boy, was it accurate, right? So it almost like there's an arms race going where they're going to leapfrog each other. And at one point in time, Google will be better at one thing and Microsoft will be better at another. And that's what will be important to you. Expect it to shift and actually be able to move what you're doing between one or the other. So our answer is, don't feel like you have to pick one. Make sure that your platform and your approach allows you to integrate with whatever is right. There's so much investment going on an AI, NLP, text analytics capability, and it may not even be Google or Microsoft. It may be some other startup that pops up and is doing something very interesting. If you've designed with that in mind, you'll be able to take advantage of that. If you view this as a platform selection and selected one platform, you could get beat pretty fast by someone who's coming up and has that flexibility. So that was our big learning. View them all as toolkits, and don't look at a tool and say, I don't need to use that tool, right? You want to try to use them all if it makes sense.
Any big surprises for you personally in going through this process? Anything really jump out at you that you didn't expect?
A lot of things jumped out at me. I mean, we took the NLP and we did even more things with image and video, right? So if you think about, logically, I'm going to write things down, but then I'm going to take pictures of things, and then I'm going to take videos of things. So to really understand the human world, you have to do all three. You have to do audio, you have to do video, you have to do pictures, you have to do text.
Sure.
So when we got into this, the accuracy and the capability that's there today is if I wasn't a technical person, I would think it's magic. Like, I just don't know how they do that, right? So we would, you give it a video and you feed it a video and it tells you, exactly what's in it. We gave it a picture of an old CRT computer monitor that had been thrown away. It was sitting beside a trash can on a road, and it gives you back, computer equipment, monitor, old, trash, road, brick, red brick. It's like it like. If I didn't know better, if I didn't know better, they gave it to someone and said, "Would you tell me what's in that? I need to write it down and send it back to these guys." Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm just amazed at the technology, and amazed at how fast it improves and how fast it changes. Right. Like we said, from the moment we started, a couple of months later, the capabilities had completely changed and they completely continue to grow. So lots of investment in this area, lots of really exciting stuff that's coming. And so our obvious advice is, be flexible, but you should be integrating it in what you're doing. You're going to save a lot of time. You're going to wow some people, right? You're going to have some people in your organization say, "That's impossible. How'd you do that?" You need it. And that's what we look for, right? I want someone to come up and say, "You need to tell me how you did that because I don't believe it." That's what this technology does. Yep.
What a great rundown, Sean. I'm so glad you guys have been whiling away the time, pitting all these services against one another. It helps everybody. This is good work.
Awesome. Yeah, we love it.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. On behalf of Sean Coleman, I'm Pete Wright. And we'll catch you next time with the next innovation that's going to just knock your socks off. That's what he's going to talk about next. We don't even know what it is.
There you go.
It's going to be magical.
I better go figure it out.
Get to work.
Yeah.
We'll be back next time right here on Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight.